Oh, hello. It seems we have a guest. Whatever can I do for you, stranger? Oh, you're curious about my little world down there. I guess I can tell you a little about it. Let's start with its people. They shape the world down there almost as much as I do. How about a shining star from where it all began? A suave, elegant vampire that will steal your heart. Let's see what his tale has to show us, shall we? Name: Virgil Hellsing. Race: emotional vampire. Sex: male. Age: 16. Height: average. Shape: femme hourglass. Magic class: blood magic. Original origin: emotional manipulation. Fair silver origin. Occupation: or a nocturne. Emo vampire nightclub. Founder manager. General of underground affairs. Part-time. Devil in the details. Designer clothing store. Fashion consultant. Affiliation: Yuki Club. Organization: 13 Gang. Alchemy Club. Fashion Club. Orchid Reflections Court. Alice. Family: Christopher Hellsing, father. Rose Hellsing, mother. Rowan Hilscher, cousin. Severus Hilscher, uncle. Glenda Hilscher, aunt. Relationships: Luke Shire, King best friend. Sky Bramble, Hatter confidant. Ruth Thorne, March Hare boyfriend. Jason Hearthsong, boyfriend. Seth Mills, human servant. Devin Casey, human servant. Simon Hittop, boyfriend. Victor Cipher, friend tutor. Virgil Hellsing is an emo vampire whose origins began in Primeverse 2, Rose Veil Seed. His time as the multiverse's pillar led to him having the largest social circle in Primeverse history. While this duty has since been passed to Lucius Pendragon, Virgil still does his best to help all the people whose lives he has touched. This often leads to him overextending himself. Lately, Virgil has endeavored to lessen his chokehold on the city's affairs in order to spend more time with his family and cluster of lovers. While this hasn't been easy, Victor Cipher's help with controlling his emotions has allowed him to step back a little, letting people make and learn from their mistakes, though he still lends a helping hand every now and then to those who truly need it. He's also always lending an ear and sage advice to anyone who asks. While his passion for alchemy has lessened over the many lifetimes of running a potion shop, he still has a strong love of fashion, clothing design, and music. Background: Rose Veil Seed. Virgil was born into a noble family of vampires. His mother, Rose, was a pixie who had been turned by his father, Christopher. This led to her being very weak and constantly ill, as pixies drew their power from the life gem in their homeworld of Candleland. Bringing them into the realm of the undead seemed to cut them off from their homeworld's energy. But at this point in history, there was no cure for vampirism, so his mother carried on the best she could, falling deeper and deeper into depression. Unfortunately, this wasn't the only thing Virgil had to worry about. A war was on the horizon between the residents of Rose Vale and a dark organization known as Neo Emeralda, a race of slug-like beings born in a place called the Mists. They craved magic and consumed it as their food source. The problem was that the magic wasn't recycled back into the world afterwards, which turned the land into barren and often toxic wastelands. Virgil's cousin, Rowan, was a part of the resistance movement as part of a triad, a group of 3 individuals who tied themselves together, mixing their bloodline and magical specialties. They could create powerful spells that might be enough to vanquish the Neo Emerald a threat. Rowan's triad was a balance of life and death. Rowan served as the death element, Quartermain Bramble, a fae as the life element, and Miranda Shire, a mage, served as the center or balancing point. Virgil admired Rowan, and for good reason. When he got older, he would serve as Rowan's blade. This meant protecting him, so he didn't need to unleash the Hillshire family's berserk state every time they used it. A piece of their will would be eaten away until they could no longer hold back their blood's burning rage. At that point, it would be Virgil's job to end his life, as he would no longer be himself and would simply be a danger to those around him. So Virgil dreamed of the day he could stand at Rowan's side. One day, when Virgil was 3, his mother sat him on his bed and told him not to come out until his father came for him, no matter what he heard. Virgil had a bad feeling. He looked into his mother's eyes and found them somehow sadder than they'd ever been, but also resolute, like she was about to finally be free. Virgil begged his mother, asking if whatever she was about to do would truly make her happy. She said it wasn't about being happy anymore. She was a burden to him and his father. She could never have been happy like this, but it was okay. Virgil and his father could be happy now, and that would make her so happy. Virgil didn't understand at the time, but that would be the last time he would see his mother for a long time. Virgil obeyed his mother, trying not to listen to her screams or his father's sobs that followed. His mother was gone. He knew that much, but he comforted himself knowing she was also free from her undead state and could now shine like the pixie she truly was. Virgil's father changed after that. He began to teach Virgil about the underground, since his grief made him appear weak. Christopher would use Virgil like a proxy, making Virgil the face of Christopher's corner of the criminal empire. Things took a further upsetting turn. A year later, Rowan approached Virgil's father and him, asking their thoughts on him becoming intimate with Miranda. At this point in history, a ritual was necessary for a vampire to be able to bear children. While this was some way off, the ritual was usually done once the vampire had decided to one day have a child with someone. As Rowan was nearly an adult, Virgil's father thought it a great idea. Virgil added that he liked Miranda and thought the two would be happy together, especially since Miranda was human, and humans could easily be turned without side effects. This was important, as part of the ritual often meant partially or entirely converting your partner into a vampire to make pregnancy easier later on. The only real problem was that their family's ritual grounds were at the edges of Rose Vale that Neo Emeralda had already partially destroyed. It was still functional, but now surrounded by a dangerous swamp whose waters were extremely acidic. Because of this, Rowan's parents insisted on accompanying him in order to prepare the area for the ritual. Rowan reluctantly agreed. On the second of 3 days needed to prepare for the ritual, tragedy struck. Rowan slipped into the swamp, and his parents, in their efforts to save him, were fatally injured, resulting in all 3 of their deaths. This devastated both Christopher and Virgil, and may have resulted in Virgil's father becoming a recluse, if not for Shire. He insisted that this wasn't the time to pull away from society and all their friends. Their triad was broken, but hope still existed in the younger generation. These words reinvigorated Christopher and led to him pushing Virgil further into the spotlight. Virgil was now the hope of Rose Vale and the entire magical world, not his cousin. While this wounded Virgil deeply, he resolved to persevere for the sake of his cousin and all he had sacrificed. He also wanted to prove himself worthy of the responsibility to his father. Here, Virgil met his future triad, Luke Shire, Miranda's little brother. His thirst for knowledge rivaled his father's. He was bright, optimistic, and loved to share. Virgil was sure he'd have no issue bonding with the boy. Sky Bramble, Quartermain's little brother, was not quite what Virgil expected. He was shy and soft-spoken, rarely stating his opinion. This bothered Virgil more than he thought it should. There was just a strange, natural friction between the two, and they fought often at first. They spent hours, sometimes days, inside a library belonging to the Shire family. The library utilized compressed time, meaning the time they spent inside was compressed, so less time actually occurred outside when they exited. This had two flaws. Firstly, it made days blur together for the young boys, making it hard for them to know if they were making any progress. Secondly, Virgil rarely saw the other two outside the library, as the time compression made them exhausted. Virgil eventually got in the habit of watching over one or both of them while they slept. This was wholly unnecessary, since their families were always around, but it made Virgil feel closer to the pair. When the sparring began, Sky showed his true worth. His healing magic was unmatched and intrigued Virgil with its applications in other areas. Sky admitted there were several applications being utilized by his family, such as shampoos and soaps. In the process of teaching Virgil how to make these, the two finally bonded. This began Virgil's obsession with nature and his love of alchemy. The knife in Virgil's heart was twisted ever deeper when, at the age of 10, Luke's family vanished alongside their access to the library. After further investigation from Virgil's father, Christopher revealed that Luke's mother, Elizabeth, had sold out the resistance to Neo Emeralda in order to secure safe passage for her family out of Rose Vale. While this seemed to be a one-time request, Virgil's father doubted Neo Emeralda would so easily let go of such a useful pawn. Even worse, Scott didn't seem to have left with them. Based on the condition the house was left in, it was clear a struggle had taken place, and Scott was now possibly missing, but more likely dead. This finally shattered Virgil's father. All of that hope and effort had added up to nothing. What could Virgil even say to reassure his father? He had also suffered the same losses. His mother, his cousin, and now a Luke. How could he tell his father that it wasn't too much, that it wasn't too far? Sky was in shambles as well. A Luke had been Sky's rock, the person to pull him out of his shell. He tried to stay positive for Sky's sake, but the weight of loss and hopelessness for the future of magic weighed heavily on his heart. Things escalated when their parents began to argue. Sky's parents wanted answers about Scott. and why Elizabeth had betrayed them. Virgil's father just wanted peace and to protect what family and friends they had left. This reached an apex when Virgil was 12. Skye was kidnapped by Neo Emeralda and taken to one of their facilities, disguised as a school called Emerald Prep. This shot Virgil's father's paranoia through the roof, and with no one left to stop them, the Hellsing family went into hiding. Years passed like this, with Virgil only getting to see blood donors and clients from the underground, exclusively within the walls of his family's mansion. With no one left to be strong for, Virgil sank into a deep depression, wondering often if this was the happiness his mother had envisioned for them. When Virgil was 14, his father, unwilling to let Virgil's future suffer for the sake of safety, enrolled him in Rosevale High. Virgil was given a laundry list of restrictions, however, most importantly of which was not to initiate contact with any of the children involved in the former resistance, especially Skye. Virgil was enraged at this. How long had Skye been back? And why had his father kept this information from him? Returning to school, he immediately saw why. The boy wearing Skye's face wasn't the timid, gentle healer Virgil had learned to love, but a tyrant full of rage and bloodlust. What had those monsters done to his dear friend? His delicate white lily. Skye wasn't the only one. Despite his efforts to avoid his former classmates and friends, many sought him out regardless of his desires to vanish among the crowd. Trixie Glimmer, an emo pixie, cornered him at lunch and demanded to know why he was avoiding her. Keeping his promise to his father, he made up a vulgar lie about how he had realized how pathetic she was. To Virgil's surprise, instead of barking back like she usually would, she burst into tears, showing how fragile she had become over the years. While he managed to avoid the rest of them, he still noticed how much his friends had changed. Between the magic suppression collars they all now wore and the various traumas they had all endured, the situation seemed truly hopeless, and Virgil almost wished he'd stayed at home. A year later, the unthinkable happened. The Shire family returned, minus Scott. It seemed he truly was gone. Skeptical, Virgil's father did some research on the family. They were, in fact, the runaway Shires, but there had been some disturbing developments. Firstly, as expected, Neo Emeralda had entangled Elizabeth deep into their affairs. The only reason she likely hadn't been converted into a Neo Black or White yet was how useful her enchantress abilities were. Secondly, Aluk had amnesia, though due to how specific the gap was, Virgil's father suspected it was a trick done by Elizabeth to keep Aluk docile. This, unfortunately, severed his link to the magical world. This meant the laws that protected magic's veil of secrecy kept anyone from interfering or interacting with Aluk in any magical way. Virgil was relieved at first, hoping Aluk's amnesia would keep him from digging around for truths, as Virgil knew if he could see the state of his precious social circle, he'd stop at nothing to set it right. A wrench was thrown into the works when Aluk ran into Trixie on his first day. While it initially seemed to bear no fruit, Virgil later that day heard rumors of Aluk's violent reaction and subsequent seizure just at seeing her so closely. This wasn't going to work, Virgil now knew. He had no choice but to hunker down and continue his routine and hope for the best. Despite telling himself this the day before, Virgil found himself on the roof, waiting for a Luke to show up. When he did, he knew what a mistake he'd made. While Sky was now so different, it was easy to tell himself that it wasn't him. A Luke was so achingly familiar. A lack of memories or magic had changed nothing about his personality or the way he held himself. To make matters worse, a Luke took a page out of Trixie's book and cornered him during lunch. He tried the harsh criticism and the vulgar words that had chased Trixie away months ago. It didn't work at all. A Luke saw right through him, as always. So Virgil was forced to resort to literally scaring him off. This seemed effective, especially when he let his veil of humanity slip a little. The sense of victory at doing the right thing never came, though the guilt ate at him, forcing him to resort to a risky soothing method he rarely utilized. Jason Hearthsong, a wolf shifter boy Virgil had been crushing on for years before the lockdown, was on the soccer team. Anytime Virgil's heart simply felt too heavy to bear, Virgil would sneak in during practice to watch him, as if an omen of things to come. He found a Luke doing the same, too tired to simply leave now without a glimpse or two of his beloved. Virgil sat on the opposite side of the bleachers. Once he was noticed, he knew he was doomed. A Luke wore him down, as if he still held all that knowledge of him from years ago. And just like that, Virgil found himself breaking his promise to his father. After a year of avoiding all of them, he agreed to be a Luke's friend. When a Luke returned from being sick for 2 days, Virgil was worried that Elizabeth had caught onto his deception already, and a Luke would be in even worse shape now. This was just the opposite. A Luke seemed reinvigorated and more determined than ever. He showed Virgil the list he'd gotten from Miranda's cat familiar, Salem. A Luke begged for Virgil's help, and Virgil agreed, letting a Luke's infectious hope soothe his aching heart. He helped a Luke reconnect with all their friends, reforging those connections himself alongside him. Sky was last to turn to a Luke and Virgil's side, but after Sky confessed his feelings and a Luke reciprocated, Sky's heart opened up like a tidal wave, spilling out all the longing he'd held inside. The three worked hard in secret to reestablish their triad. However, without proper teachers, and each dealing with their own issues, they made little progress. That was until a Luke found a hidden staircase in his attic. This led to 2 rooms containing what initially appeared to be 2 children. Upon opening the doors, they woke the 2. As a result, they explained that they were a triad on a cosmic scale. The first boy was named L. He wore white clothing, but seemed far more sinister than his innocent appearance portrayed, while D wore black clothing and appeared tsundere and unapproachable. In truth, he was quite kind in his own way and fiercely protective of his brother. Their center, N, had been taken by Elizabeth to create the latest strain of black blood, which was used to convert people into neo-blacks or whites. In the process of trying to stop her, both boys had died, but could not move on without N. They offered to teach the 3 to be a proper triad. In exchange, they asked that when they are able, they rescue N from Emerald Prep so that they could move on together. They agreed, and training began in earnest. A year passed, and the three became stronger together. They also trained their friends who wanted to help in the coming war. Many battles were fought and won, pushing back the Neo-Emeralda threat. As retaliation, Neo-Emeralda kidnapped Sky once more. He returned as one of Neo-Emeralda's soldier class Neo-Blacks. Aluk was determined that Sky was not gone. Aluk and Sky fought, and to Virgil's surprise, Aluk pushed down the Neo-Black influence, not only giving Sky his body and mind back, but allowing him to still use the Black Blood's power. This marked a turning point for the rebellion. They later tried kidnapping Aluk, but due to his connection to Sky, he was immune to conversion. He also took the opportunity to orchestrate a rescue from within Emerald Prep. Once returned to his brothers, En insisted they finish training the three before leaving. This led to them shaving off parts of themselves in order to become closer and stronger together. Many of these pieces developed personalities of their own. One of Aluk's pieces, Rue, became Rue Thorn. This piece seemed to contain parts of Aluk's connection to the Fae, along with a crush on Virgil that Aluk had buried as a child. This resulted in Virgil falling in love with Rue. They eventually completed the intimacy ritual together, turning Rue from a night fae to a hybrid of night fae and vampire. Virgil did this because he believed that fully turning a fae would only result in Rue feeling the same pain his mother did. Virgil fought valiantly, dealing the final blow to Neo-Emeralda himself at the cost of his life. He regretted leaving Rue alone in the post-apocalyptic world, but he hoped that Rue would forgive him and find a way to rebuild their broken world now that it was saved. The pillar. Virgil lived many lifetimes, searching for new and old friends in each one. This, in turn, resulted in him becoming a multiverse pillar of sorts. He became the first person most people would meet, remembering all his previous lives. Virgil would do his best to guide them. He would also do everything he could to help everyone, even at the expense of his happiness or health. This eventually fractured his mind, resulting in his personality, moral compass, and priorities shifting drastically throughout his lifetimes. He was both the villain, hero, and support for many grand adventures. At one point, his father gifted him a boy named Devon Casey, a ritualmancer and a special type of blood donor, born and raised to produce the highest quality blood known as a gourmet. Virgil, eager to share his gifts with someone, refused to see Devon merely as food and offered him a place as his human servant. In another lifetime, his story was fractured. His and his cousin's family was fused, and he became a Hillsher without the berserk mode. In another, he gained psychic powers. In one of the Hillsher timelines that felt stable, he gained a different human servant named Seth Mills, a shiftmancer, and one of the people he had helped in the past. This resulted in him eventually being the only vampire with 2 human servants. He also entered a timeline where his mother at the time, Helen Hillsher, married the king of Southern Darkhelm, making him a part of the Ravenwood family for a time, and gaining him Sebastian Ravenwood as a twin brother, a fact he still considers accurate to this day. He also participated in the first King's Game, conducted at the remodeled Emerald Prep, which at that time was run by the Blackwells, a neo-black family who wished to repent for their past sins. He eventually found himself getting sicker and weaker with every timeline. Seeking help from Sterling Ashcroft, he told Virgil he needed to find his balance, not with a Luke or Sky, who had appeared in several timelines, but with his lost love. Without Rue, Virgil would tear himself apart. He offered to let Virgil enter the Tree of Life, a sacred tree he was tasked with protecting long ago. He, however, warned the path would be dangerous, and at the end, if Rue refused to return with him, there was nothing he could do. Virgil fought his way to Rue and begged his forgiveness and to let him take him home. Rue laughed and said Virgil must truly be in a wretched state if he thought Rue's answer could be anything but yes. How could he blame Virgil for dying for him if he would have gladly done the same? Rue had been waiting for him, and now they could go back together this time. Overjoyed at the return of Rue, as promised, Virgil began to improve. Rue helped him understand that if he helped everyone, no one could grow. They would stagnate and never get better. He also showed him that asking for help himself was not burdening those he cared about, but instead giving them the opportunity to repay him for his kindness. Through this, Virgil was finally able to see the tangled web his life had become, while he still valued and cared about all those he had influenced. He slowly cleansed himself of their stories, allowing them to evolve in whatever way fate decided. He launched an investigation into finding his real mother, and with not so many people depending on his every move, he was able to realize his feelings, not only for Jason after all those years, but also for his old friend, Dorian's new brother, Simon Hittop, a Blue Hatter. After being reunited with his mother after another King's game, Virgil swore that in the next world he would do better. Fairsilver Seed. In Virgil's current incarnation, he is no longer the multiverse pillar. He passed the duty on to Lucius Pendragon in order to focus on the present instead of the past. His Triad and Rue have formed a court in the Violet section of the Mad community, with Virgil acting as Sky's Alice, to Sky's great delight. He opened and later passed on a potion shop called It's in the Brewing, a spin on a common phrase used when referring to how magic works. It's in the doing is now a mantra he applies to his everyday life. He has gotten his parents back together, as well as reuniting them with Landon Hittop, Dorian's father, who they both were in love with in their youth. He has finally, through confronting his demon, embraced his pixie heritage. This bloodline mix converts him into an emotional vampire. This means, instead of blood, he can feed on emotions. With the help of Victor Cipher, a fellow emo vampire, he has opened an emotional-based nightclub called Aura Nocturne. He now splits his time between managing his club, helping keep the underground stable, and spending time with those he loves. He still acts as the social nexus for the city, but instead of taking on all comers himself, he will redirect people to others that can help them better. Personality. Virgil was very empathic long before he realized his true form as an emo vampire. He intuitively knew his mother's intentions, even if he couldn't yet comprehend why. When isolated with his hopeless father, he eventually adopted the same perspective. This is, however, rapidly warped with a push from Luke. He becomes extremely self-sacrificing, then bitter, and finally desperate for relief. While acting as the pillar, he tried to make up for leaving Rue behind by never leaving anyone alone again, not realizing he was making them codependent on him, stunting their growth, and ensuring he would be eternally overwhelmed as those he helped stacked up. After regaining Rue and then his mother, he began delegating his burdens to others while still maintaining the bonds that were created. His creative spirit and passion for everything he does is infectious. He not only makes people believe in him, but in themselves as well. Even though he has taken more time for relaxation, Virgil still prefers a busy schedule full of adventure, music, and opportunities for love and laughter. And if he gets to put some gangsters in their place, well, that's just a bonus. Appearance. Virgil's bright lightning blue eyes are iconic. They are his most defining feature, consistent in every lifetime he has endured as a psychic. They light up like an LED screen, and as an emo vampire, they sparkle like jumping Tesla coils. His silky, shimmering black hair has appeared in dozens of styles, from short to long, though Virgil has stated he prefers to wear it long and wavy, though a long, colorful braid is also nice for more formal occasions. He makes all his own clothes, having gained a hobby for fashion during his time as a Ravenwood. His curvy feminine frame often gets him mistaken for a girl. He enjoys this thoroughly, often wearing girls' clothing to lean into the joke. Abilities. Blood magic. As a vampire, Virgil was trained in advanced blood magic in preparation for his time as Rowan's Blade. This training was further accelerated during his time in the library. He has mastered much of the blood arts over his many lifetimes. He often utilizes it in fights, but prefers to use it to allow him to cook food he can actually eat. Emotional manipulation. Now that he is an emo vampire, Virgil can utilize a form of hypnosis common with the vampire race in the hands of an emo vampire. However, instead of soothing and lulling people into an suggestible state, Virgil and those like him can control people's emotions, tuning them to their favorite flavor for feeding. Virgil rarely uses this power in this way, since he prefers a variety of emotional flavors. He does infuse it into his music, however, inducing certain emotions with his tunes. Ancient wisdom. Virgil has collected a significant amount of knowledge over his various lifetimes. He uses this to aid and assist his friends and loved ones, offering ways to solve seemingly impossible problems, creative solutions, or simple fixes. Virgil is a library unto himself, though he admits he certainly doesn't have all the answers. That's all for dear Virgil. A treasure to so many, and truly a beautiful tale. Farewell for now, and come back again soon for another glimpse into